Welcome everyone to this webinar, What's New in CEDS. My name is Dwayne Brown and I am the Deputy Director for the Common Education Data Standards Initiative. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the CEDS community site shortly following this presentation. The purpose of this webinar is to highlight some of the changes that have taken place on the CEDS website and in version 6 of the CEDS standards, both of which were released just a couple weeks ago. So the logistics, the format for this webinar will be presentation. If you have any questions along the way, feel free to type those into the chat box, and I will either answer those as we go or review and provide answers at the end, depending on which would work best. To start out, for those who may be new to CEDS, CEDS is an education data management initiative whose purpose is to streamline the understanding of data within and across P20W institutions and sectors. Basically, the Rosetta Stone for speaking the same language in education. If you want to communicate something related to education data, CEDS is a great way to communicate. CEDS is a common vocabulary adopted through collaboration from many different standards bodies and organizations. Wherever possible, CEDS does not reinvent data elements or definitions. It uses primary sources as the definers of elements and definitions, and it brings all of those together in a single common vocabulary. CEDS provides tools, metadata, and data models to assist stakeholders in the management of their data, and it provides opportunities through collaboration within the community. Collaboration is extremely important to CEDS, and we want to highlight just a few arenas where CEDS is being used for collaboration, innovation, standardization, and communication. The Center for IDEA Early Childhood Data Systems, also referred to as DAISY, has developed extensive tools and resources for states around IDEA Early Childhood Data Systems. One of those resources is a list of critical questions that can be asked to help inform programs to improve outcomes for children. To answer questions, data is needed, and which data is needed, well, that requires a list of data elements to analyze. And DAISY is working in the CEDS Connect tool to list those questions, the common data elements, and how they would go about answering those. The State Longitudinal Data System, or SLDS, Grant State Support Team partnered with CEDS and several states to build a CEDS connection that helps explain the military connected student requirement in ESSA. The Center for the Integration of IDEA Data, also referred to as CID, is a technical assistance center that assists states with the integration of their IDEA Part B data. They are actually building a tool called Generate that will produce the special education EdFACS files for a state. The tool is being built on the CEDS normalized data schema structure and will be piloted with Nevada and is expected to be released in October of this upcoming year. Then we have EdFi, who has done an amazing job collaborating and creating collaboration work with states to develop an operational data store and to develop dashboards that can be used across states. And it is aligned to CEDS and has their EdFi 2.0 Align map available as a resource to states in the CEDS Align tool. The Equitable Access Support Network, also referred to as EASN, has released a research connection in CEDS related to measuring equitable teacher access for minority students. You'll see that we mentioned the CEDS Connect tool in relation to DAISY, SLDS, and for EASN. Connect is a repository of questions, whether they be for reporting or research, or whatever the reason, and then it provides the data elements needed to answer those questions and the process one would take in using those data elements to go about answering the questions. And finally, we have Access for Learning, also referred to as A4L or known as CIF. They have developed a list of elements that will make up a student's individualized education plan, or IEP, and CEDS is starting the process actually tomorrow of looking at those elements and defining them for possible inclusion in CEDS version 7. The list is only a partial list of the collaboration work CEDS does with various different organizations. And so I just wanted to make those aware to you. Another look into what CEDS is doing is what CEDS is doing in states. Nearly every state and territory has at least one public or private map in CEDS, and that's an aligned map. 21 states have actually published alignment to CEDS from various different systems inside of those states, allowing for collaboration between the states and then also collaboration with other organizations that have published elements such as Ed5. A few states have also contributed connections to CEDS, which is an area of focus for CEDS in the upcoming year. As I mentioned, the CEDS Connect tool is a repository of questions. The elements needed to answer those questions, and then the analysis done with the elements. This year, we're going to be working with several states to develop out more connections. So anyone on this call, as you work through data, you have to answer questions that inform instruction or that provide administrators or policymakers with data for key decision making. We would absolutely love to partner with you to develop those into CEDS connections. That would allow other states to consider or to replicate the work you've already done. So it's not really a matter of sharing the actual data, but Connect is a matter of sharing the process that you went through using elements to get to those answers related to the questions you were asking. So it would be great if we could partner. So anybody on the call who's interested, you can just let us know. And throughout this year, we're actually going to be building out several connections related to questions that states are asking about data they have. And taking a closer look at the map and looking at what different stakeholders are doing, Washington, the state of Washington, used the CEDS Connect tool to capture their classification requirements for privacy and confidentiality of educational records at the element level. Oklahoma is implementing the CEDS Normalized Data Schema as their operational data store for their state longitudinal data system. Metro Nashville Public Schools in Tennessee is using CEDS as the standard for their approach to master data management. North Carolina, they use the CEDS Align tool as a resource to coordinate the data dictionaries of multiple state agencies for integration into a single P20W master data dictionary. And then we have Idaho, and actually the Idaho Department of Labor is using the CEDS Normalized Data Schema as a data alignment tool with their Board of Education to transport key reporting data from the Board of Education to the Department of Labor, and that is particularly around WIOA. So with all the organizations, the states, the varying roles that exist inside of states, researchers, policymakers, technical individuals, non-technical individuals, all the different various roles of people who use CEDS in varying ways, we determined it was very difficult to answer the question, what is CEDS? Or to answer the question, how can CEDS help me, with only one answer? So we broke the answer down in this enhancement to the website into 5 basic roles and 4 main activities or resources. The roles on the front of the CEDS website describe different individuals who would approach CEDS in different ways and for different purposes. IT developers, data stewards, researchers, CEDS coordinators, policymakers, and practitioners. And the activities describe some main focuses of CEDS. Explore CEDS is all about CEDS and the varying roles. The Mapping Toolkit assists anyone in using the CEDS Align tool. Data governance provides resources for stakeholders just starting out or managing their current data governance structures. And naturally, we provide direct assistance related to CEDS to anyone who asks. From the Explore CEDS page, we created a graphic that describes the tools each individual role may use. All go through the data standard, which is CEDS, and all can take advantage of the CEDS community, but some may be more interested in one tool or resource over another. Clicking on any one of the roles highlights the individual path. Researchers would be very interested in the Connect and the elements to develop out research questions, and they would be interested in knowing who has the data necessary to answer those particular questions. They can find out using the Align and the My Connect tools. Data stewards would have need of the same tools, but they would sort of use them in the opposite way. Their own data dictionaries would be in Align, and they would use the elements to help them map their vocabulary and their data to the common vocabulary, which is CEDS. They would then use the My Connect tool to apply shared connections that might be from researchers, connections they create, or connections from other states, against their own Align maps to see what questions they could answer with the data that they have. An IT developer may not be nearly as interested in using the My Connect tool to to link connect to align, but would certainly be interested in the data model CEDS has, as well as looking at the elements from a technical perspective. They would look at the more technical pieces of connect and align that allow them to organize the table and database structure of their own systems. Below each selected path on the website, such as IT developer, there are links to resources on the CEDS website that would be of interest to that particular role or that particular individual. An IT developer may ask the question, so how can CEDS help me build a P20W data warehouse? The link is to a data model guide with examples of star schema data models used in a P20W data warehouse. An IT developer may want to know what role CEDS plays in data interoperability regarding packaging and transport of data. CEDS provides information about other standards organizations that play those roles as a resource and as part of the collaboration CEDS has with multiple organizations. Below the data steward path, which is a completely different set of users, the tools may be similar, but the way in which they use them would vary. So the data steward may be interested in setting up or finding resources that help them manage a data governance implementation. And the link to data governance actually takes them to resources around data governance. Or they may be beginning the process of integrating data, and they need to know which tools CEDS has that can assist them and how best to use them. A data steward may be tasked with overseeing setting up a process for classifying data for sensitivity and privacy, and they will need resources for where to begin. Each of the green elements, or each of the green text on the actual page represents links to resources that can help that individual based off of their role and their particular need. Now that we've covered the roles, we're going to look at some of the resources CEDS has recently developed, such as the Mapping Toolkit. The Mapping Toolkit is organized into 4 books of information and resources that will assist the user in mapping their data elements to CEDS. Each book contains information and resources for the user. Book 1, for instance, contains templates for a project plan, scope, a map alignment worksheet, and an issues log. And among other things, Book 3, main thing to point out here, which is preparing resources, is that you can contact CEDS directly and have us provide trainings, webinars, or demonstrations for your staff. We're happy to set up a virtual or in some instances on-site events to train individuals on the use of the CEDS tools. In addition to the numerous resources for the various roles, we want to make you aware of a couple updates to the actual CEDS tools themselves. CEDS is a community of driven community. CEDS community that drives the enhancements and the resource needs. Those mainly come from the community. So when we're looking for things that need to be updated or things that need to be changed in the standard or on the website, it's the community that drives most of those needs that come in. And so one main request we received was to provide a modification change history report on the tools that indicate what was modified in the tool and tracks the user who made the change. And so now the report, after being requested, is available in Align for the MAP administrator to see. And we also have the modification change history report available inside of Connect. And when the administrator of that particular connection or the MAP runs the report, it provides the date and time stamp of the change, the user who made the change, and also a description of the modification of what was made for that particular MAP or that connection. Another new feature in both Align and Connect is the ability to share the map with all or to share the map only with some users whom you select. There will be times when an Align map or a connection is ready, you finished it, it's created, and it's ready for everyone to see. In those instances, you could select Share with All, where you could collaborate with other states, you could provide, in Connect, you could provide research questions you worked on, so there can be collaboration among states and among organizations. In those instances, you're sharing with everyone the connections or the Align maps. But there's also other instances when you may want to create a map or a connection for internal use. And you have the ability to select specific individuals who have CEDS accounts to view the map or to view the connection. And when you're setting that up, you're able to search for the user. And if they don't have an account in CEDS, you have the ability right there in CEDS to send them an invite so that they can create their own account and would be able to view what it is that you have shared with them. CEDS has also developed 3 new resource videos. From the home page, clicking on Explore in CEDS, a short video provides a quick CEDS 101 for those who may be new to CEDS. From the home page, clicking on Resources on the menu bar and then Building a Data Dictionary, CEDS has developed an overview video of a process one might go through to build a data dictionary for your own agency using the CEDS tools and element definitions as a resource. And then again, from the home page and clicking on the researcher's role, a video describes how researchers can take advantage of the tools and common vocabulary in CEDS to find out where data may be available and to help frame out the research question and the related data elements in a common language. CEDS is continually working to make sure the standard addresses the needs of the community. The CEDS standard is comprised of elements at the very granular level. Each year provides an opportunity for stakeholders to suggest the inclusion of new elements or new groups of elements based on how they are using the standard. This past year, 21 new elements were added to CEDS. 43 elements were updated based on legislation, user feedback, corrections, community input, and just a variety of other factors that come into play. Over 400 contextual updates were made in the domain entity schema to reorganize the hierarchy structure, the folder structure, and over 4,000 definitions were added to clarify the meaning of codes within option sets. CEDS version 6 presently contains over 1,400 unduplicated element definitions, so it is a very extensive library of education elements. The 21 new elements that were added to the CEDS standard this year are listed here. You can also view these elements by going to the CEDS website, clicking on the elements on the green menu bar, and then you can view version 6 elements and apply the filter for new elements. You can see that a major focus for CEDS this past year was related to adding elements about K-12 finance. We had 43 elements updated. These can also be viewed by clicking on elements on the CEDS menu bar and then version 6 and then filtering for updated elements. Again, as you can see, a major focus here was updating the K-12 finance elements inside of CEDS. There were over 400 contextual updates. The CEDS domain entity schema, which can be accessed on the CEDS website, under Data Model on the green menu bar, is a hierarchical structure of domains, entities, and categories, which house all of the data elements. An example of a domain would be K-12. Other domains would be early learning, post-secondary, workforce. Under each of these elements, the elements are categorized into entities and categories. And this past year, the CEDS community focused on restructuring the domain entity schema, or also known as the DES, to create more of a P20W consistency throughout. Some folder structure names in K-12, for instance, didn't match the folder structure names in early learning or post-secondary or vice versa. This did not change any of the elements or their definitions, but it created more consistency in the folder structure across all of the domains. There were elements also that were found that were applicable to other domains, and those were included. Certain elements related to disability and program participation, for instance, were found in early childhood that were not located in K-12, and the same was true the other way around, where elements were found in K-12, but they weren't listed in early childhood, and they actually were applicable to both. So while the elements did exist and their definitions existed, the structure of housing the DES did not have them in both locations. So a person in K-12 looking for a particular element might not have found it, or in early childhood looking for a certain element might not have found it in early childhood, but it would have existed in K-12. So this was true for many of the domains, such as post-secondary and workforce, where the same element would apply. So a lot of work was done to actually consistently have a P20W focus throughout the entire DES. Another change that was made was related to assessments. Assessments already had its own domain, similar to K-12 post-secondary workforce. There was an assessment domain, and there were also several of the elements and folders included in other various domains. So post-secondary had some information about assessments, though not a complete listing, and K-12 had information about assessments, but not a complete listing. So a user going in to do their map may have run into, well, I can find the assessments information in K-12, but I need some other assessment information, so I have to change domain. So basically, it was determined that assessments really could make up its own domain entirely, as individuals are assessed, whether it be formative or summative or any other kind of assessment. They're assessed across all the domains. So individuals are assessed in early learning, they're assessed in K-12, they're assessed in post-secondary, they're assessed in workforce and adult education. I know when I was in workforce, I had to take some tests to get a job for certain things. So there are assessments all the way across all the domains. So the assessment elements were pulled out of all of the domains and now reside exclusively in the assessments domain as its own unique domain inside of the DES. Another update was to the normalized data schema. CEDS provides a model of the domain entity schema in the third normal form. And this page provides resources that can actually create an entire CEDS structured database in your system, and it populates all of the reference tables with all of the option sets that CEDS has for you. And so it's really just a script that takes about a minute or two to run each script, and then you have a complete normalized data schema, third normal form, CEDS structure with all the option sets in your database. So a very extensive and complete tool that takes a lot of time to develop, but is there as a resource to you, and I know several states and some organizations take advantage of that being there. This year, several modifications were made to the NDS based off of feedback from individuals in the community who are building out implementations using the CEDS NDS, as well as input from SID, who, as I mentioned earlier, is working on the Generate project, which is also built on the CEDS NDS. And so the updates were made based off of the feedback that we received from those different organizations and individuals. So now that you know some of what is new in CEDS, will you be a part of what is new next year? Already, work has begun on CEDS version 7. Tomorrow, actually, at 2 Eastern, there is a webinar to discuss the inclusion of IEP elements into the standard, taking the work that the A4L Association has done to define out elements for IEP. And more information can be found by going to the CEDS community site at ceds.grad360.org. Also, CEDS is community and collaboration focused. Throughout this past year, we've heard from the community related to tool enhancements, to website improvements, and the new elements. And we already have a list started from stakeholders just like you who are incorporating the tools, elements into the work they're doing to manage data. They've run into things. As they run into things that would improve the overall use, they let us know, and we work to incorporate those changes. And so we've already got a list started for this upcoming year for some of the things that some of the stakeholders would like to see, some additions to align, extra elements, just various different things. And so those on this call, as you get ideas, as you're working in the tools, as you're needing resources related to data management, let us know. We want to know those things, and we may be able to provide resources or tools or enhancements or elements inside the standard that can actually assist you in making your job easier in managing data. So as you get those ideas, please feel free to pass those off to us. Contacting us is basically just a click away. The Contact Us page provides a way for you to leave feedback, request assistance from us. We do offer assistance to states in using CEDS, or to anyone actually in using CEDS. It's also a location for you to make suggestions for updates or resources. So let us know basically how CEDS can help you. We are glad to hear from you anytime. And then, of course, you can always contact me directly if you would like to. The CEDS website is listed here as well as the community site. The community is where all of the discussions take place. So if you want to be involved or you want to hear what's going on, we have a listserv there. You can go to the community. There are 2 communities there. They're using CEDS and developing CEDS. Using CEDS basically is everyone who uses CEDS in any way at all, and there's discussions, there are resources available there that you can take advantage of. The developing CEDS community, which is in the same location, actually works on the standard itself, and that group will be working on those IEP elements as well as any of the other elements that need to be modified or added to the standard for version 7 throughout this year. So a great place to get involved, or at the very least, to just sign up and be able to pay attention to what's happening there in case anything may be applicable to you, or you may be able to provide some input. But when we do the enhancements, when we review things, that goes out through that CEDS community. There are over 900 members of that community, and it allows us to get some feedback based off of what we'll be doing in this upcoming year. If you have any questions, I would be happy to take those in the chat box. Otherwise, I will stay here. It concludes the webinar and all about what's happening in CEDS. Please visit the site. You can also follow us on Twitter. Thank you for attending, though, and have a great day.